However, the fact that the case is formally over is by now not new. Yes, exactly. The major development that we received earlier this week was the news that the joint stipulation of dismissal had been approved by the Second Circuit. Thus, the case is now formally concluded. Is now a significant occasion to celebrate. Well, I think so, don't I? Again, considering how long it took to actually finish, this is past due, isn't it? It's been past due for a while. Personally, I believe that this ought to have been resolved long ago. The most important thing I've ever stated on this channel is that this was a major barrier for XRP holders as well as for Ripple. We ought to have been celebrating back in 2021, you know. We ought to have been rejoicing from the beginning of 2021 to the present, since we ought to have witnessed widespread acceptance of XRP and Ripple, as well as expansion for both of them. The market as a whole seemed to be waking up to XRP as well. After all, this litigation put a lot of things on hold, and now we are finally moving past it. However, we also need to consider the advantages of this. For instance, the SEC provided us with a fantastic opportunity to purchase. They allowed us to accumulate XRP at some notable lows over a very lengthy period of time. Additionally, Ripple kept growing outside of the US throughout this time. Outside of the US, we observed a rise in XRP acceptance. And consider all that has been implemented in the cryptocurrency space to support the actions and identities of Ripple and even XRP, correct? In technical terms, Ripple is a legitimate and fully compliant cryptocurrency-based company and network that has been entirely focused on institutional-grade adoption and institutional-grade crypto use cases. At this point, institutional players are receiving the all-clear through significant regulatory discussions and actions. And for these kinds of use cases, XRP has always been that utility-based project. So once more, if we give it some thought, sure, were we faced with numerous challenges over the years? Did 2021 turn out to be a wash for XRP? Yes, it was. However, I believe that the market is ready for XRP to take over right now because we took the time to establish ourselves as a respectable utility-based institutionally focused cryptocurrency powerhouse. And Ripple, as a crypto-based corporation, they did the same thing, you know. We're finally moving on from this, and both Ripple and XRP appear to have a bright future ahead of them. Speaking of that, now that this case is over, we are mostly examining one significant issue, which is ETFs. Grayscale files S1 for the XRP ETF are what we have here today. This was particularly intriguing because, once more, it happened shortly after we learned that the case was closed. Additionally, this demonstrates, guess what? This was a significant challenge. Yes, a lot of things were being held back by this. This is a significant development since it compels the SEC to make a decision. At the same time, issuers were updating a number of XRP ETF files today, most likely in response to SEC input, so it wasn't just monochrome. Positive indicator, but mostly anticipated as well. Additionally, the alert is visible everywhere. Possess Canary XRP in addition to Grayscale, Bitwise, WisdomTree, 21 shares, Franklin, and Coin. Once more, there have been significant changes to the ETF filings for XRP, which we have been discussing as being that huge push. Wall Street is clearly aware of how significant this will be once their XRP ETFs are approved. They are also aware of how successful it will be. They are also aware of how much money this will bring in. In addition, Nate Gorelshi gave us a significant update on this. Therefore, all of the S1 modifications that are coming in today on spot additional PEFs were highlighted. Very noteworthy to see them cluster like this, he remarked. I think it's a very positive indicator. Furthermore, as I mentioned earlier, the SEC is being forced to make a decision regarding whether or not to accept this cluster. And this is fantastic in my opinion. Applying this kind of pressure to the SEC immediately following a significant ruling. For instance, to formally dismiss the case and drop it. This is a positive indication that we may soon have an XRP ETF. I mean, a spot ETF approved in the United States. What's the estimated time of arrival? By the end of September? I would argue. They must be compelled to come here after all. The deadlines are currently set for the end of October. Therefore, I don't mind if we have to wait till October. However, we also received a significant update from Johnny Dean, declared, what happens if you fight back and assist in removing the government's boot from an industry's neck? The secret government claimed that XRP was unlawful 3 years ago. SEC attorneys contended that all XRP tokens were unregistered securities as XRP symbolized Ripple's efforts. Let's fast forward to the present. Additionally, XRP spot ETFs are awaiting approval. As I previously stated, the SEC deadlines for each approval are about October 18 through October 25 for Bitwise, Coin shares, Canary Wisdom, 21 shares. The best case scenario for XRP ETFs based on the Bitcoin spot ETF example would be that trading starts 1 to 5 days after SEC approval. Additionally, weekends are not included because these are business days. According to the Ethereum spot ETF scenario, 2 months would pass once Ethereum ETFs were approved. The SEC requested further information about S1 filings. In summary, Judge Torres rolled partly because XRP holders intervened in the lawsuit. According to MSC, the judge mentioned in her rolling XRP is not a securities in and of itself, and without that rolling, these spot ETFs might never be created. Indeed, it is accurate. Thus, once more, this demonstrates that you can actually win by fighting back. And for XRP and its holders, that is precisely what is taking place right now. Additionally, I'm quite enthusiastic about the future of these ETFs, despite the fact that we will have to wait a little while longer and that they will be delayed somewhat. Similar to the Ethereum ETFs, I still believe that this will be very significant for XRP because, once more, consider the demand that this will generate if they are spot-based ETFs because, the spot ones are the main focus. The ones in the future are irrelevant. They have no effect on the final cost of the demand or the underlying asset, but the spot ones do. As we already know, they have had great success with Ethereum and Bitcoin thus far. I simply fail to see how they would not also be successful with XRP. Over the past 12 months, XRP has been among the top 100 biggest gainers. In terms of the top one, the 12-month period, it has performed better than Ethereum and Bitcoin. Thank you for viewing. Goodbye.